He was a singer, comedian and all-round entertainer. 20 years after William Taitoko died, the man better known as Billy T. James still holds a special place in Kiwis' hearts. Billy T. to movie speaks to just some of the people touched by the comedy legend. Let's take a quick look now.
Good evening, listeners, and let me assure you that there is no cause for feeling bad tonight because everything on Radio Times is looking good. This is your host, Dexter Fitzgibbons, welcoming you to another fun-filled, fascinating 50 minutes with the Southern Hemisphere's greatest dance band, the Radio Times Orchestra.
Television loved Billy, and Billy loved television.
He suddenly became a star.
Mama don't allow no piano playing around here. I said, Mama don't allow no piano playing around here. No, sir. Well, Crosby don't care what Mama don't allow. He gonna play that damn piano anyhow. Mama don't allow no piano playing around
He was definitely more than a funny man, Joe.
He really was, and I think that's one of the nice things about this film, that it does go back and bring up all his musical past. He started off in the Māori Volcanics, in a show band, touring the world, and then came back to New Zealand and really, you know, carved out a career path that didn't really exist at the time, and started working in those variety shows in Radio Times before he started to do that more signature comedy that we perhaps think of with the yellow towel and the black stubbies.
We've had a movie like this recently, Untouchable Girls by the Top Twins. How does it equate in comparison to that?
So, yeah, a couple of years ago, Top Twins was a fantastic documentary. This doesn't... It's definitely going for a similar feel, but it doesn't hit the same mark because...
Because Billy T's dead?
Yeah, because, well, you can't interview him about his life, can you?
No, you
and the people that they do speak to, there are lots and lots of people talking in this film, lots of talking heads, but very few of them actually knew him particularly well. The family chose not to be involved. They didn't want to be spokespeople, sort of to drag out the process anymore. They just didn't want to be spokespeople for other people's feelings towards Billy T. That's how they put it.
Does it feel like they didn't support the project then?
I don't know if it's that. I can understand. He died 20 years ago. Maybe they just... You know, they don't want it all rehashed in their minds. So, I mean, there are some fantastic people in here, former colleagues. Laurie D, who's you can see now. Laurie D, you know, has some really great insights on him. But they went and interviewed people who, you know, they interviewed journalists who'd interviewed him once upon a time in 1988. And people that didn't, you know, perhaps have a lot to do with him. And it felt if it had just been more organised, more structured and a little bit more condensed, you might have had a stronger product.
Does it deal with the subject of his humour? I mean, he was quite good at sort of dealing with those race relations issues that were below the surface. He's sort of poking the borax a little bit.
That's the other thing with this documentary. It touches on that. And it touches on the more controversial parts of Billy's career. The fact that his most recent series before he died didn't do well. It really did fall off the rails. They do touch on that, but they perhaps don't go far enough. One of the particularly confusing parts of the story is his relationship with his daughter, who was actually his niece. And the way they kind of phrase it was it made it sound like he'd had an affair with his sister-in-law, which wasn't the case at all. Right. But it sort of felt like if you were going to either tackle it and, you know, really get down to the nitty-gritty and explain it, or don't. Like, either make it as, you know, this is your mate and it's a touching look back at his life, or
it's
sort of get in, either get in there.
How many stars from you?
3.5 stars.
Okay.
It's an enjoyable watch and it's great to see that archive vision, but it is a lot of talking heads and it could have had more of Billy T.
And wouldn't it have been nice if he was still alive today? Joe Hunkin,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.